Usually, bachelor parties mean a group of men, drinks in hand, relaxing and chatting. It's a time for bonding and enjoying the time to the fullest. But things were not the same for this group of friends who decided to bring their dog along for a solo getaway in the woods. They had just arrived at the cabin and were about to unload the car when they noticed the dog sniffing the ground. None of them expected her to rush off when she picked up a scent. They dashed off after her, not wanting her to get lost. But it wasn't long before they found something that would change their entire weekend. And everyone knows that dogs have an excellent sense of smell, and as brilliant as it may seem, dog owners constantly worry that their dogs will rush off to follow a scent and never return. The best that can be done is to follow and hope that you keep up with them, or reach them before they get into trouble. Frey had brought the dog along to the cabin in the woods, thinking it was a good idea, but they never knew a simple decision like that would change all their plans. Despite all this, the men agreed they were happy with how the events panned out, but what had happened to make them feel this way? So one of the friends had mentioned the possibility of bringing their dog along, and none of the men argued. They knew how close he was with his best friend, and they didn't want to get in the way. She was a well-behaved dog, so everyone was surprised when she dashed off as soon as they arrived. What had gotten into her? The men rushed after her hoping to find her again, and they eventually did after lots of shouting and searching. But she was acting strange. She was near a metal boat that was turned over, and there was no taking her focus away from it. She wouldn't leave it alone and seemed curious about what was underneath. The men all needed to recover from their run, but as soon as they were ready, they tried coaxing the dog away from the boat. They finally wanted to head back to the cabin to start the bachelor party. But no matter how hard they tried, she didn't budge. She refused to lose her focus on the metal boat, wanting to know what was underneath. Her gaze was locked on the boat, and nothing else could make her look away. She walked around the boat repeatedly, whining and pawing at it. She was sniffing at the base, adamant about finding what was underneath. The men could not ignore it any longer. There was something under the boat the dog was smelling, but what was it exactly? The men couldn't leave the dog behind and risk losing her, and they decided to approach the boat because the dog's strange behavior and curiosity urged them on. One of the men slowly flipped the boat over. That's when they found something that made them all take a step back in surprise. They had found a group of kittens. The men were shocked at how the dog led them to the boat housing the helpless animals just by using her nose. That was why she had been acting so strangely. They had done everything to try and get her away, but she had no intention of leaving until the kittens were found. But what had happened? How long the poor kittens had been stuck under the boat remained a mystery, and whether the tiny kittens had been abandoned by their mother, or if their mother had passed away, it was impossible to tell. But the group of men knew that they had to do something. The men dropped to their knees and inspected the kittens. No matter what the answers to the mysteries were, the good news was that the kittens were not only in good health but, thankfully, they seemed to be in good shape still. In fact, the little balls of fluff seemed to be as healthy as kittens who lived in loving homes. Normally, when you think of cats and dogs together, you picture fights, chases, and general chaos. And even more surprisingly, this particular dog had never met a cat before. So the men were amazed to see that, instead of chasing them, the dog seemed to be absolutely crazy about their adorable and furry little rescues. The dog instantly began to fuss over the kittens. It was clear that her maternal instincts had kicked in and she was focused on caring for the kittens as if they had been her own pups. On top of that, the kittens didn't hesitate to walk up to the dog as if they were old friends. Then, the dog started to lick and bathe the kittens, cleaning the dirt from their fur. When the men lifted up the boat, the kittens' eyes widened in amazement as they saw the big forest around them. The men knew that the dog that they had brought along for their trip had certainly saved them from a more unpleasant fate. How the only question was what to do with the kittens. The men decided that since they had enough provisions, they would take them back to the cabin and give them a proper meal. The dog walked proudly beside the men as if she knew the enormity of what she had done for the helpless kittens. The group of friends had intended to make burgers and hot dogs for dinner, but they quickly realized that that was exactly what the kittens needed: meat. And they prepared a huge bowl of hamburger meat for their little rescues and watched them happily tuck in. The dog who had found them also received some meat scraps as a reward. After all, she had earned it. After waiting around the spot where the kittens were found, the men quickly realized that the mother wasn't coming back for her kittens. They had no choice but to take matters into their own hands. It was decided that the first thing the men needed to do was take the kittens to a vet to make sure that there were no health issues. The vet checked the kittens over and was astounded. He gave them a clean bill of health after numerous tests, just to be sure. The vet and the men were amazed that the kittens were in such good condition, especially given the circumstances and where they were found. But there was more good news for these two lucky kittens. Shortly after the trip to the vet, both kittens were adopted by two of the group. It was the perfect ending to an eventful weekend. Although the men had to change their plans, they were grateful that they were able to save two lives that day. The men enjoyed each other's company, celebrated a bachelor party, and went home with two brand new family members. But none of the men ever expected their story to go viral. When one of the men uploaded the photos of the adorable kittens on a Reddit thread called RA with the title A Boatload of Kittens. The Reddit user's online moniker is starting_right_meow, and most netizens generally thought the story was delightfully wholesome. However, a few thought the whole situation could have been handled better. Any idea about their mother? One concerned user asked, and another pointed out that the kittens looked too young to be separated from their mom. Yes, are they somewhere where you could put them back but keep an eye on them in case their mother doesn't come back? The user asked. They are so tiny, they could use having a mom around for at least a few more weeks, I imagine. Had the men actually done the right thing? The one Reddit user pointed out that the men shouldn't have taken the kittens away from their mother. Instead, they should have followed the teenage trap, neuter, release protocol, which is the system feral cat rescue groups use when they come across kittens without homes. But you should call it trap, neuter, release group. They'll use the kittens to get the mother to come back, trap her, let her nurse the kittens, spay her, and then release her, and then find homes for the kittens. I know everyone here thinks it's great that those kittens are being rescued, but the mother cat is certainly going to be looking for them, unless something has happened to her, the Redditor continued. And the kittens look too young to be taken away from her. Plus the mom cat is going to go and make more babies, and just continue the cycle. But it wasn't long before more comments came flooding in to reprimand the men for taking the kittens in. Another user commented with disdain, an adult wild cat would not approach you, especially if you have a dog with. Almost certainly you just kidnapped those things from a loving mother. Oh humans, what a bunch of dumb ass we are. It wasn't long before you starting_right_meow had to defend his position. But what is the right thing to do when you find abandoned kittens in the wild? According to the Alley Cat Alley's blog, if you ever find kittens in the wild, no matter how tempting it may be to save them, you should leave them be. According to the article, kittens who seem to be abandoned often have a mother who is out hunting nearby. However, there are exceptions to this rule. If the kittens are over 8 weeks old, the best thing to do is to have them sterilized and return them to where they were found. Alternatively, you can foster or adopt them. However, it's important to make sure the mother is not coming back for her kittens, which is exactly what the men did. You starting_right_meow answered all the judgmental replies to defend his position. We waited around for the mother for quite a while. There was no sign of her. They were feral and we were worried that they might not make it through the cold weather, and with winter just around the corner, you starting_right_meow replied. We took them to a vet and are following instructions to make sure they are properly taken care of. I know it would have probably been better to leave them for the mother. We couldn't just leave them there with other things in mind. But try not to judge too harshly. I just wanted to try to help them. While people may think, oh well, you're taking the babies away from the mom, the reality of the situation is the kittens need to be taken inside and get the care they need. Another user with 20 years of experience in rescuing feral kittens replied in agreement. Not to mention when nursing the mom expends a lot of energy just to care for them. Hate to say it, but she's probably better off just looking after herself. Left alone to grow the kittens will just contribute to the feral cat population anyway. Thank you. The problem with this situation is we were at my camp. It's in the middle of nowhere and we were only there for the weekend. I kept an eye out the whole time for her with no luck. I was worried about posting these pictures because I didn't want to upset anyone. You starting_right_meow replied. I really just wanted to make sure these little guys had a chance, and they would have been on my mind if we had left them. So I dare anyone here to say they would have done differently. Look at how cute they are. You lie.